Shalom, and greetings to my brothers and sisters in Master Yeshua the Messiah who have his testimony and guard his commandments. Brother Nick here, and today is the 7th day of the 11th month on Yahweh Elohim's non-Gregorian, solar calibrated, 364-day calendar. The Gregorian equivalent is January 24, 2025. This video is recorded and published from the island of Cyprus. And this video is the Passover is a man thing, and Adam Fink is a false teacher. In this video, I'm going to prove the Passover to be a men-only meal. No women or children allowed to eat it. I will define the established age requirement of a man to be of 20 years old. I will explain what women and children do and eat during the Passover. I will explain that the renewed covenant of Messiah Yeshua was only made with men, and women and children are not in the new covenant. It is a man thing. Now, ladies, sisters in Messiah Yeshua, please do understand that this is not misogynistic. I have to be biblical with all of our understanding to get it back to what it used to be. You have your place in the body of Messiah, and you are blessed. We need you. So we'll talk about that later coming up. Just chill. And if you're watching this, your husband should watch it and explain it to you. If you're married, your husband should watch this video and explain it to you. You should not watch this video. Have your husband watch it. Okay? If you're not married, you can go ahead and watch the video. You can watch the video. I will explain the reason Messiah Yeshua instituted the bread and wine as remembrance symbols of his renewed covenant with men. And lastly, I will expose false teachers, most notably Adam Fink and Joe Fox, for keeping the Passover outside of the Holy Land and giving the Passover to women and children. Hopefully they'll repent. Maybe Joe Fox will. I don't know if Adam will. I don't think Adam really sees repentance a lot, but we'll see how everything plays out. But this video right now, I have to make it because of what's going on in the body of Messiah. Currently within the Torah-observant Hebrew roots and Messianic faith, there are congregational leaders and groups and individuals who are teaching by example and who are practicing in violation of the Torah and that the Passover lamb or kid goat is to be eaten by women and children. And also they teach and practice that the Passover can be eaten away from Jerusalem, where Yahweh put his name. So let me go ahead and clarify that. A lot of these pastors don't even know that it's not for women and children, but they're just teaching by example because they're wrongly eating the Passover outside of where Yahweh put his name, and they're giving it to women and children as well, even though they're likely ignorant of the fact of what they're even doing. There's a lot of teachers out there, but as I said, most notably Adam Fink. Why? He has over 196,000 subscribers for his Parable of the Vineyard channel. His video on how to Passover had over 80,000 views. He's telling you how to do the Passover, and he doesn't even understand that women and children aren't supposed to even eat of the Passover, let alone it being eaten in Jerusalem. Okay? All right, in his 2024 video, he had 97,000 views, so up almost 20%, and this is why he needs to be checked. Adam is a false shepherd, and he needs to be checked. I will prove him to be false. He is ignorant of the scriptures, or he is knowledgeable and purposely deceiving you all. I don't know. Also, Joe Fox of Viking Preparedness with 181,000 subs, he also teaches to keep the Passover, and from what I see is with women and children. And this again is in violation of the Torah. So you have Torah teachers trying to tell people how to keep the Torah, and they don't even know what they're doing or keeping the Torah. All right, so this is why I need to make this video. And as a side note to anybody new out there to my channel, if you are a Torah follower and if you really want to follow the Torah, then you would watch my video series and enter into the restored covenant of Noah, which is to eat only boiled flesh. You can only eat flesh after it has been boiled and the blood broth poured out. Okay, Gideon poured out the blood broth. This is the real covenant of Noah. This is why I am a real Noahide. I explain that, and I got a lot of different videos explaining what eating with the blood is. Anytime you eat fire roasted flesh, okay, you're eating with the blood. That's why when Yeshua said, eating the Passover meal, you're eating with the blood. You're eating with the blood of that Passover lamb. Only the Passover in Jerusalem is eaten roasted with fire. All other consumed flesh must be boiled in water and have the water poured out into the soil, the blood broth poured out into the soil like water. Watch my video on the restored covenant of Noah. Link to the playlist of all my videos on this topic in the video description. Please watch like 3 or 4 videos, okay? It's all in there. So, the Passover, only a man's religious right. No women or children allowed to eat it. Scriptural support for this is Joshua chapter 1, Exodus chapter 12, and Numbers chapter 9. So Joshua 1 proves Passover is a man-only thing. Let me go ahead and read you Joshua chapter 1, verse 10 through 18. Then Joshua commanded the officers of the people, saying, "Pass through the host, and command the people, saying, Prepare your victuals, for within 3 days ye shall pass over this Jordan, to go in to possess the land, which Yahweh your Elohim giveth you to possess it. And to the Reubenites, and to the Gadites, and to the half-tribe of Manasseh spake Joshua, saying, Remember the word which Moses the servant of Yahweh commanded you, saying, Yahweh your Elohim hath given you rest, and hath given you this land. Your wives, your little ones, and your cattle shall remain in the land which Moses gave you on this side Jordan. But ye shall pass before your brethren, armed, all the mighty men of valor, and help them, until Yahweh hath given your brethren rest, as he has given you. And they also have possessed the land which Yahweh your Elohim giveth them. Then ye shall return unto the land of your possession, and enjoy it, which Moses, Yahweh's servant, gave you on this side Jordan toward the sun rising." Okay, so that's what I just explained to you. Your wives, your little ones, your cattle shall remain in the land, which Moses gave you on this side the Jordan. This side of Jordan, they're going to give it. But you shall pass before your brethren, armed with their swords and with their spears, all the mighty men of valor, and help them. Who is he speaking to? To the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. Here they were. They were over here, right here. Here's the Jordan River. You can't really see it, but they were like right here, ready to cross over. And Manasseh, Reuben, and Gad left their wives, children, sons, and their livestock, their children under the age of 20, behind in their inheritance, which is the land that they received from from Moses on the east of the Jordan. This is where they left their wives, children, and livestock, and they were told to put on their battle gear and go out and lead and be the first to cross over the Jordan River in battle gear, ready to come in and go to war with everybody in the land. They had just defeated Og, king of Bashan, up here, and Sihon, king of Heshbon. So they defeated Sihon, king of Heshbon, in all of this land, and then they went up and defeated Og, king of Bashan here. They came back to the camp here, and then Moses was told to die, but before he died, he gave them their inheritance. And now Joshua is the leader, and he's telling them, leave your wives, children, and livestock behind, where? In this land, their inheritance, and cross over in front of your brothers. So this is proof why Passover is a man thing only. It's only a man thing. Joshua's timeline proves that Passover is only for men. Why? Because their wives and children and did not come with them, nor did their livestock come with them to slay the Passover and keep it. So let me go ahead now and break down a timeline of Joshua, just a couple of events here, and I'm going to prove that. In Joshua 1, verse 10 through 15, Joshua instructed Israel to prepare to cross over the Jordan and instructed Manasseh, Reuben, and Gad to leave behind their women, children, and livestock. Check. Okay, got that. Next, in chapter 3 and chapters 4 and chapter 5, verses 1 through 9, on the 10th day of the first month, the Israelites crossed the Jordan and set up camp at Gilgal. Joshua circumcised Israel. Also, Joshua circumcised all the men of Israel. And then the men remained in their camp. They didn't leave the camp. They healed up. And then that's all the way from Joshua 5 through 9. And then in Joshua 5 verse 10, quote, "And the children of Israel encamped in Gilgal and kept the Passover on the 14th day of the month at even in the plains of Jericho." So their children, which could have been boys under the age of 20, none of them that were going out to battle, none of them that were 20 years old came over. And at that time, all Israel had to be recircumcised, or they had to be circumcised again. This generation did not get circumcised while they were in the wilderness, which is really interesting to think about, that all the ones that were circumcised, they died off, and their children didn't get circumcised while they're out roaming around in the wilderness. It's really interesting to think about why that happened. So they crossed over, got circumcised, the men, anyone 20 years and older, got circumcised, healed up, kept the Passover. And you need to know that the women and children of Manasseh, Reuben, and Gad, they were not present for the Passover, and they did not miss out on the Passover because Passover is a man thing for men. Exodus 12, verse 4, Passover instruction is to the men. Here you go. "And Yahweh spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Yisrael, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for a house. And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it according to the number of the souls, every man according to his eating shall ye make your count for the lamb." Okay, so there you have it. This is for him. Let him and his neighbor, every man according to his eating. And this is to men. This is not to women and children. As you see here in Exodus verse 12:4 in the Hebrew, that word for man is ish, or ish, or ish, man, masculine, singular, right here. Okay, so him, which is also, okay, here's the word for him. Okay, his house, which is masculine. His house, his neighbor, which is masculine. His house, which is masculine, singular. Okay, according to the numbers, okay, of the man. Okay, his eating. So there you have it. This instruction is to men, not to women and children, underage girls and boys. Later in the chapter, in Exodus 12, we see more Passover instructions are to men, and this is for the servant and the alien that joined to Israel by circumcision. "And Yahweh said unto Moses and Aaron, This is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no stranger eat thereof, but every man's servant that is bought for money, when thou hast circumcised him, then shall he eat thereof. A foreigner and a hired servant shall not eat thereof." Okay, so if you are a hired servant, you can't eat it. But if you've been bought with a price and your permanent property, then you can eat of it because they are circumcised. "In one house shall it be eaten. Thou shalt not carry forth out of the flesh abroad out of the house, neither shall ye break a bone thereof." So once the Passover, it appears, the flesh goes into the house, it can't come out of the house. All the congregation of Israel shall keep it. "And when a stranger shall sojourn with thee," remember the mixed multitude, "and will keep the Passover to Yahweh, let all his males be circumcised, and let him come near and keep it. And he shall be as one that is born in the land. For no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. One law shall be for him that is homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourneth among you. So if a stranger, an alien, shall sojourn or be bound with Israel, become part of Israel, part of the commonwealth, as a sojourner in the land, or sojourner among the Israelites, all of his males have to be circumcised to eat the Passover. And in the entire chapter of Exodus 12, there is no instruction for women or youth, males under the age of 20 or females under the age of 20, to keep the Passover. In Numbers chapter 9, we see more instruction for Passovers to men. Let keep the sons of Israel the Passover at its appointed time. And that word for sons is beneh. Ben, which is sons. Sons is masculine plural right here. And this is because Yahweh is only in covenant relationship with men over 20. The Sinai covenant was only made with man. The Ten Commandments only given to men. And here is the last of the Ten Commandments, the 10th commandment, some people will say, Exodus 20, verse 17, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. And if you notice, Yahweh never said, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's husband, because Yahweh was not speaking to women. Yahweh was only speaking to men. But women are supposed to also follow the law, as they are property of their husbands, and daughters are property of their father. When Yahweh gave the Ten Commandments, the men were in front toward the mountain, and the women and children, all under 20 years old, were in the back. So this means Moses only sprinkled the blood on the men only. The age requirement to eat the Passover. A biblical man is 20 years old. The scriptural support I'm going to share is that they go to war at 20 years and they have to pay the temple tax, or the temple offering that they did. The offering that the Israelites took, shekel of a sanctuary, was only if you were 20 years and older. And then also other scriptural support will be the temple scroll. A man begins at 20 years old. Numbers 1:3, from 20 years old and upward, all that are able to go forth to war in Israel, thou and Aaron shalt number them by their armies. Numbers 1:18, 1 verse 18, and they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they declared their pedigrees after their families by the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, from 20 years old and upward by their polls. Numbers 1:45. So all those that were numbered of the children of Israel by the house of their fathers, from 20 years old and upward, all that were able to go forth toward Israel. Exodus 38:26. A bekah for every man, that is half a shekel, after the shekel of the sanctuary, for every one that went to be numbered, from 20 years old and upward, for 600,000 and 3,550 men. So 603,550 men brought forth a shekel, a half shekel of gold. That's a lot of gold that they had to bring. But that's because they were men. You can go to war. You can enter into the congregation, which is the congregation of Israel. You could go into the tabernacle at that time, or to the temple. You can also get married at that age. That's the age of consent of getting married. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother. So when you become a man, that's when you leave your father and mother and you get your Isha, your woman, and then you cleave together. So the biblical age for marriage is not 18, it's not 17, it's 20. And more than likely, how I understand it, a female has to be 20 as well. This is how I would understand it, because you get an Isha, a woman, not a child. So a man shall marry a woman, not a man marrying a little girl, okay, or a girl that's under the age of 20. This is how it looks to me. All right, so they'll be mature adults at 20 years old. So here you can see in the Dead Sea Scrolls Temple Scroll, this is scroll 11Q19, every male 20 years old and older shall celebrate the Passover. Right here. The Passover of Yahweh, and they will perform sacrifice prior to the evening offering. They will sacrifice it. Every male of 20 years and older shall celebrate it. Celebrate the Passover. Okay, some of this stuff is reconstructed, and they shall consume it at night in the courtyards of the sanctuary, and every one shall rise early and will go to his tent. Now, that's a real difficult thing to do. This is according to the Temple Scroll. We see an account of the priests doing the Passover in 2 Chronicles chapter 35 with Josiah. It looks like the priests did the Passover for the people. I always thought that it was a Passover done by the man of the house. I'll have to take a look into that. I don't have a correct ruling on that or an opinion at this time. Okay, and as a side note, here's Dead Sea Scroll 1Q28a, the rule of the congregation, the congregation of like Qumran, it looks like, and it's to abstain from sex until he is 20 years old. At the age of 20 years, he will transfer to those enrolled to enter the lot amongst his family and join the holy community. He shall not approach a woman or know her through carnal intercourse until he is fully 20 years old, when he knows good and evil. So this is not the Torah. This is just a rule based on the Torah for this community. They just want to make sure that the men are staying, or boys are staying celibate until they become a man, and then obviously it would have to be the relations would be, the carnal relations would be in marriage, okay, under a marriage covenant. So that's just something there to consider. Now, women or children are not in covenant relationship with Yahweh Elohim or Messiah Yeshua and do not eat the Passover. Again, this is for men to watch and tell their wives and explain these things to their wives. This is not for married women to watch this video without their husband. This is for men to do. If you're a single woman, sure, you can watch this video. But this is not to squash or belittle you. This is to get the correct understanding of the Torah. All right? So they're not to eat the Passover. Now, Messiah Yeshua said, he did say, hey, let all the little ones come unto him. They can have faith in Messiah Yeshua. They can believe on Messiah Yeshua at a young age. Sure, 100%. I did, others have. But you're not in covenant relationship until you hit 20 years old. At Messiah Yeshua's final Passover, no women were present or invited to the meal. It was men only. This means Messiah Yeshua did not make a covenant with women. He did not renew the covenant with women. Can't renew a covenant with women because no covenant was ever made with a woman. Just as Yahweh Elohim never made a covenant with women, Yahweh Elohim only made covenants with men, Israelites, and alien men joined to Israel by circumcision. Instead, on the 9th day of the first month, a special meal at Simon the leper's house, maybe the father of Judas Iscariot, that included Martha and Miriam and likely at least another woman possibly, who poured the spikenard on the fragrance on his head, and unless that was Martha or Miriam that did it, Lazarus and others. So this was a special meal that was prepared on the 9th day of the first month for Messiah Yeshua before the Passover, before he would do that, and women were there. This was a time period for that. Now we do know that Messiah Yeshua's mother was in Jerusalem for his execution. Jesus and his mother at Passover. Now his parents went to Jerusalem every year at the feast of Passover, and when he was 12 years old, they went up to Jerusalem after the custom of the feast. And when they had fulfilled the days, as they returned, the child Jesus tarried behind in Jerusalem, and Joseph and his mother knew not of it. But they, supposing him to have been in the company, went a day's journey, and when they sought him among their kinfolk and acquaintance, and when they found him not, they turned back again to Jerusalem, seeking him. And it came to pass. Okay, so we see the boy Yeshua and his mother at Passover. But just because the boy Yeshua and his mother Miriam accompanied Joseph to Jerusalem for the Passover does not mean they ate the Passover with Joseph. That is a false supposition. People just suppose that that's what happened. But that's not how it happens according to the Torah. Dead Sea Scrolls 4Q265, miscellaneous rules, no underage boy or woman eat the Passover feast. Then why would we act faithless one to another by profaning the covenant of our fathers? Not should an underage boy or a woman eat the Passover feast. So the people that are writing this rule, if a woman or an underage boy eats the Passover, you are profaning the covenant of your fathers. So if Adam was such an anointed teacher with almost 200,000 subscribers, you would think in such a large congregation and getting 90,000 views, you would think that he would understand these things. But it might not be a covenant with his fathers because there is no biological evidence that he is an Israelite or what he claims to be a Levite. According to Justin Best, Adam claims to be an R1A Levite.
I have a problem with Adam Fink. Where do I begin? First of all, Adam believes himself to be a legitimate R1 DNA strand Levite from the tribe of Levi, traced all the way back to the original tribes of Aaron.
And most of Adam's congregation are all R1B, so which are the Western Europeans. But Adam is an R1A, which is associated with like Ashkenazi Jews. So there you have a different situation here. All right. So we don't know if this was a covenant made with Adam's father or not. He just says he's Jewish, but we don't know if he's a true Israelite or not. We don't even know who the real Israelites are. And he could be an R1A Edomite. For all we know, we have no idea. But I speculate that the R1As are Edomites. Maybe I'm mistaken. So now let me go ahead and get back to the women and being in covenant relationship. Though women are not in covenant relationship with Yahweh, the women are still subjected to keep the same law. I don't know where that passage is, but I saw they're bound by the same laws, obviously. A woman's covenant is with her husband, who is to be in and keeping covenant relationship with Yahweh Elohim. An unmarried woman is under the authority and ownership of her father, who is to be in covenant and keeping covenant relationship with Yahweh. A concubine is in relationship with her master, who should be in keeping covenant relationship with Yahweh Elohim. A maidservant is in relationship to her master or mistress. The master is in covenant relationship. The mistress is in covenant relationship to her husband, who her husband should be keeping an in covenant relationship with Yahweh Elohim. A free woman or widow in Yisrael still needs to abide by the law. Okay? So that is something I haven't worked all the way out, but there are such things as free women in Yisrael. We read about a woman becomes free if she was captured during the war. She had her head shaved, and the man, her captor, after 30 days of letting her mourn for the death of her parents, goes into her, has sexual relations, makes her his Isha, his wife, and then for some reason he's not happy with that woman, he can let her go away for free. If she lets her go, she becomes a free woman, and she can't be sold off into slavery. Okay, so that's how that one works. So that's a free woman. As for widows, most widows, I think they maybe wear a head covering all the time if they're a widow, possibly, which is like a symbol of their husband, and they would wear widow's garments, which is they're wearing all black. They're wearing widow's garments probably, which is all black, and that's how that works as far as a widow's concerned. So that covering, that head covering that she has, is to symbolize the covenant relationship she had through her husband, who's no longer around. She's no longer bound to her husband, but she has a head covering in remembrance of it until she gets remarries if she's young, like really young. But if she's an older woman, she wouldn't get remarried, I guess. That's how that would all work out. And remember, when Yeshua was on the execution stake, he looked down to his disciple whom he loved, I believe. He said that to John. He said, which is John. He said, "Your mother." So basically, telling John to take care. Behold, your mother. Speaking of his mother, to John, I think the Revelator, who will become the Revelator, and Yeshua is saying, you take care of her now. So she obviously was a widow. No, Joseph, Messiah Yeshua, was taking care of his mother, and he was in covenant relationship. So there you have it. So a son is in that role. He becomes the head of the household, and that's why Yeshua was like, behold your mother, because Yeshua was about to die. So now John's responsible, unless it was James / Jacob, who was Yeshua's brother, half-brother, who's in covenant relationship and over Yeshua's mother. Okay, so that's how that one did. Who was a widow. That's my best understanding right now, how I understand it. If I'm right, hallelujah. Well, so that's it. And it's very important regarding the Passover. Again, I'm going back to Exodus 12. The instruction is to men to eat the Passover in one house shall it be eaten. Thou shalt not carry forth out the flesh abroad out of the house, neither shall ye break a bone thereof. So, where are the women and children when this is all going on? If one house doesn't mean it's like a man, a wife, and their young kids. A house is all the men in your family. So that would be your cousins and your uncles and your grandfather. And maybe if his brother's alive, and that might be one's house. So brothers, your father, your uncle, your brothers, and your father's brother, or brothers and his sons, which would be your cousins, and your grandfather all together, possibly. This is how it is in one's house. So grandfather, sons, and grandsons of 20 years age, they're all eating it together in one house. That means that the women and children are going to be in another house. Okay, more than likely. That's how I understand it, because the houses weren't that big. So the women and children would be gathered together in another house. And that means that the father would seal his firstborn son in the house with the blood of the Passover. I'm 45 years old, but if I had a 20-year-old son and my grandfather and my father was 80 or 70 or 60, and my brother had sons and he was of age and his sons were of age, we'd get together in one house. My wife would go into my house. Maybe some wives might get together, but what would happen is you would put your young children, if you had young children, my 20-year-old had children, or 24-year-old had 2 children with a wife, you would put together them in one house, and then you would take the blood of the Passover, strike the lintel, strike the doorpost, and protect your son. Keep them in that house and protect your firstborn as a man of Yahweh should do in raising his sons and his children. So that's what we are supposed to do as men, is to protect our children, help them make the right decisions according to the Torah until they get 20 years old and they're trained and they won't depart from what you trained them in and how to do. So that is very important regarding this Passover, what happened there, what it symbolized. All the grown men were in a house. All the young boys, the firstborn was protected with the blood of the Passover lamb. He was put into a house and protected. Go into your chambers. It reminds me of that scripture maybe in Jeremiah. Go into your chambers. Behold, his indignation is going to pass over until his indignation be passed over, or something like this. I don't know the word, but that's what happened here. That's what's supposed to happen on Passover. So the guys are supposed to get together. The men are supposed to get together. The boys and the mothers and sisters are supposed to be together, sealed inside the house, not come out. The men are in a different house, not worrying about their wives, not worrying about the babies crying, not learning about the little kids running around, not worrying about any of that other stuff. But it's a night to be men with men, to remember that covenant that you entered into and what your fathers entered into. Okay, back in the original Exodus, and the covenant they entered into at Sinai. So there's just a lot going on here. Exodus 12:26, and it shall come to pass when your children shall say unto you, what mean ye by this service? That ye shall say, it is the sacrifice of Yahweh's Passover, who passed over the houses of the children of Yashrael in Egypt when he smote the Egyptians and delivered our houses. So when you put your son into, you put your son, if you have a son under the age of 20, you put him in your house, or any of the firstborn sons or whoever, they're going to say, yeah, why are you doing this? What's going on? Well, this is because of this reason. So you can read about that here. Moses called the elders of Yashrael and said unto them, draw out and take you a lamb according to your families and kill the Passover. You shall take a bunch of hyssop and dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and shall strike the lintel and the 2 side posts with the blood that is in the basin, and none of you shall go out at that door of his house until the morning. Okay? For Yahweh will pass through to smite the Egyptians when he seeth the blood upon the lintel and on the 2 side posts. Yahweh will pass over the door and will not suffer the destroyer to come into your houses to smite you. And you shall observe this thing for an ordinance to thee and to thy sons forever. And it shall come to pass when ye be come to the land which Yahweh your Elohim give you, according as he hath promised, that you shall keep this service. And it shall come to pass when your children shall say unto you, what mean ye by this service? That you shall say, it is the sacrifice of Yahweh's Passover, who passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Egypt, when he smote the Egyptians and delivered our houses. And the people bowed their head and worshiped. And so that is something to consider, that when you're in covenant relationship with Yahweh, your children are under you. This is why you're not supposed to get divorced. Paul wrote about when you become divorced or divorce a wife, the child is no longer sanctified. But as long as you remain together, the child is sanctified. Remember Adam, he divorced his first wife while he has almost 200,000 subscribers, getting tens of thousands of video views. He put away his first wife, married another. Adam's never talked about this, so all we can do is speculate on it. If Adam wanted another wife, he could have just become a polygynist and got a second wife. Now, he would not be able to become a pastor then, but he didn't have to put away his first wife. It's not said that she committed adultery on him, so that would be the only grounds for divorce. But Adam broke up his whole family, divorced her, because he wanted to marry another woman. So that's what the story on the internet. Adam's never talked about it. So all we can do is speculate. So we have to just go with what has been told about it, and that's the truth. So Adam uncovered his son, his children, when he did this. But us men, we're supposed to be a covering for our children. We're supposed to live this way, to think about their best interests, put our aside, and teach them how to live in the Torah. Keep a covering, keep them covered. You're in covenant relationship. They're under your protection and under your authority. And again, say your children to you, what service by this do you mean? Speaking of the Passover. And that, again, that children is masculine plural. And that word, again, is b'nai. B'nai kim. B'nai, ben is sons. So when your sons, a better translation is when your sons say to you, what do you mean by this service? That's how that is all works. And this is regarding the dedication of the firstborn in the next chapter, the dedication of the firstborn. And thou shalt show thy son in that day, saying, this is done because of what Yahweh did unto me when I came forth out of Egypt. Show thy son. Okay, so this is explain to them what they're doing, but this is regarding the firstborns and how the Israelites did that, and also unleavened bread. So now let me explain the reason why Messiah Yeshua instituted the bread and wine as remembrance symbols of his renewed covenant with men. One reason why is the bread and wine is a symbol of him, Messiah Yeshua, being the Melchizedek, King of righteousness. That's who he is. Messiah Yeshua is the King of righteousness. So this symbol of the King of righteousness, of the bread and the wine by the King of Salem, this goes all the way back to Abraham's time. And I think Genesis chapter 12 it is. So if anybody out there, false apostates, okay, like Justin Best, who wants to say, oh, this is all based off of the Greek writings, okay, Abraham was way before any Greek writings. Okay, we are talking like, so the story, the account of Melchizedek and the bread and the wine and this rite, this ritual, this thing, this goes way back to that time, which is like 2000 BC, okay, 1900 BC. Okay, this is way before any of the Greek writings and all of these false pagan stories. This is way back there. So this is super based. And Justin, he just doesn't have understanding of where this is all based. So any heretic out there that's trying to undermine your faith, there you go. All right, this is way before the Persian Empire and their Mithra religion. This is way before Dionysus and the Greeks. This goes all the way back to Genesis chapter 12 with Melchizedek, the bread and the wine. The other reason for this is so that the lost Israelites, okay, this is why the other reason for the bread and wine regarding his renewed covenant is for the lost Israelites in diaspora can keep the night of the Passover abroad and return to the covenant, okay? They're not keeping the Passover with the flesh of a Passover lamb or of a kid goat, but they can keep the night of Passover and with the bread and the wine, and they can return to the covenant and guard the commandments, which they're called to do. Okay, so false teachers teach people to keep the Passover lamb outside of where Yahweh put his name, which is Jerusalem. The truth is, Messiah Yeshua knew the law, that the Passover needed to be kept in Jerusalem, where Yahweh put his name. Messiah Yeshua came for the lost sheep of the house of Yashrael, that he knew were in diaspora, scattered abroad, on their way to the four corners of the earth, the flat earth, and could not perform the Passover. So Messiah Yeshua, he was smart. He knew the Passover had to be kept where Yahweh put his name. He wanted the Israelites to return. He came only for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. This is why a lot of the apostles and disciples went out to the lost Israelites. Okay, there were Israelites in Judah that had lost their identity. Some of them kept them, right? Anna, she kept her identity from being of the tribe of Asher, maybe. But there were other Israelites that scattered abroad, we know this, to the four corners, lost their identity, and they needed to be brought into the covenant, brought back into repentance and faith in Messiah Yeshua. So he knew the Passover could not be kept abroad where they were. So he gave the bread and the wine to be done on the night of Passover. Is why Messiah Yeshua instituted the unleavened bread and wine on the night of Passover as the symbol of his renewed covenant. So when his gospel went out to the Israelites scattered abroad in diaspora, they could enter into the renewed covenant, a covenant by sacrifice. Psalm chapter 50. That was a prophecy of a covenant by sacrifice. There you have that. So the Israelites and all men abroad from the Holy Land who have entered into covenant relationship with Messiah Yeshua can honor the night of Passover and remember Messiah Yeshua and perform the rites of the unleavened bread and wine on Passover. Paul, who I am currently mixed about, I am very mixed on Paul, and I'm going to be making a video on that. There's some things on Paul that are amazing. It looks like he was Enochian, but then there's things on Paul where you see him adding certain things and doing some other things and changing some accounts of his letter to the Galatians that is super sketch. Also, there's other things that I found with Paul, but I'm not going to get into that right now. I'm not against Paul at this time. I'm not for Paul, but I definitely question Paul and see some things that I don't like. Maybe there's answers to it. I'm not ready to go ahead and go into that, but at least Paul understood the Passover could only be eaten in Jerusalem. And this is what he said in 1 Corinthians. Get rid of the old yeast so that ye may be a new unleavened batch, as you really are. For Messiah, our Passover lamb, has been sacrificed. Therefore, let us keep the festival, Passover, not with the old bread leavened with malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. So keeping the 7-day festival of unleavened bread, which also included Passover the night before, which is an unleavened meal, you would keep that with unleavened bread. So Paul is telling the Corinthians in Greece, okay, to keep the feast. Where? In Corinth. All right. Now, Paul, he had to have known that the Passover was not permissible to eat abroad, and he's telling them to eat with the unleavened bread. So it would have been the bread and the wine. Now, I'm going to be making a video coming up. Yah willing I live, I hope to make another video coming up on what possibly might be the false communion or love feast that Paul wrote about, of the bread and wine, eating it whenever you want and doing that type of thing, because it looks like he added to Yeshua's words, and I'm going to go ahead and explain that in another video coming up on Paul, specifically this part about Messiah Yeshua eating the Passover. Okay, so now let me go ahead and expose false teacher Adam Fink. Okay, and here is a video. We're going to go ahead and watch this video clip of Adam.
We owe him everything we have. So we're doing this in remembrance of Messiah, the true Son of Elohim, the true Lamb. As the song said earlier, without Yahusha, we would all be dead in our sins and not alive in grace. That's why we're here. So when we're eating this meal, we're remembering him. Our Messiah is the Lamb of Elohim. He's not on our plate, but it's a remembrance, a symbol. He's also the unleavened bread that we're going to be eating. The unleavened bread symbolizes doctrine without the leaven of man, without the doctrines of men. Hallelujah.
So Adam says when they're eating this meal, and that meal is the flesh of a Passover lamb, that they're remembering him. But Messiah Yeshua never said that. Now, Adam did say when we're eating the bread, we're remembering him also. But Messiah Yeshua never told people to remember him, eat a Passover lamb, do this in remembrance of him outside of the place where Yahweh put his name. So Adam is telling everybody in that video to eat the flesh as in remembrance of Messiah Yeshua. But that is contrary to what Messiah Yeshua said to do in remembrance of him in Luke. Chapter 22, Messiah Yeshua said eating the bread is in remembrance of him. Maybe the bread and the wine, but definitely the bread is in remembrance of him. not the Passover flesh. Not eating the Passover flesh is to be done in remembrance of Messiah Yeshua, as Adam falsely taught. Okay? It was a sign of the Passover to come, but it's not to be done looking back. Okay? Looking back, and Messiah Yeshua says, do this in remembrance of me. He's speaking of the bread. Okay? So let me go ahead and read. And when the hour was come, he sat down with the 12 apostles with him. So no women. And he said unto them, with desire I've desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. So they were eating Passover on the correct calendar night. For I say unto you, I will not eat any more thereof until it be fulfilled in the kingdom of Noahide. So this was his last Passover until that, it appears. And he took the cup, and gave thanks, and said, take this and divide it among yourselves. For I say unto you, I will not drink of the fruit of the vine until the kingdom of Noahide shall come. All right, so maybe he didn't eat the Passover. Maybe they ate the Passover. And he took bread and gave thanks and brake it and gave to them, saying, this is my body, which is given for you. This do in remembrance of me. Now remember, in John 6, he said, he's the bread of life. Okay, so he's saying he is this do in remembrance of him, speaking of the bread, not speaking of the flesh, like Adam says, falsely taught. Likewise, also the cup after supper. That word supper is just eating. So after they ate the bread, likewise also the cup, saying, this cup is the New Testament in my blood, which is shed for you. But behold, the hand of him that betrayeth me is on the table. And truly the Son of Man goeth as it was determined, but woe unto that man by whom he is betrayed. And they began to inquire among themselves which of them it was that should do this thing. So here you have it. Messiah Yeshua says, do this in remembrance of him. Eating the bread, at least. All right? And then likewise also the cup. So likewise also the cup is done in remembrance of Messiah Yeshua. So there you have it. Adam teaches falsely that the flesh is done in remembrance of him. The whole night is in remembrance of Messiah Yeshua. But the flesh element is not to be eaten abroad. He is a false teacher, almost 200,000 subs, and he might be claiming ignorance of the Torah, that he doesn't know it's only for that the Passover is only for adult males 20 years and older, and it's not for women and children. I didn't know that. But he is teaching that the Passover is eaten outside of Jerusalem. And by falsely teaching that the Passover is outside of Jerusalem, he fell into this, which is false and error. He fell into this other error of teaching that women and children to eat the Passover. And as I said, it's like it shames the covenant, as I mentioned in the Dead Sea Scrolls. That's how they viewed it, if women and children were to eat the Passover. So he might say, I didn't know this, with no tears. He does those crocodile tears with no real crying. He might say that and try to get his way out. But this is why he's a false teacher. This is why he shouldn't have been teaching. He shouldn't have known this. He taught falsely it can be eaten outside, and then now he's teaching even more false things. So that's it. He's a false teacher. Brothers, with that being said, I hope that you're blessed by this video. You have this understanding. Share it with your Isha. Share with your wife, your Isha, your woman. Okay? Share with your other brothers in Messiah Yeshua. And I'm signing off. And shalom to my brothers out there in Messiah Yeshua who have his testimony and guard his commandments. Shalom to you.